Canelo's got some of the best movement in the game, almost like he's one step ahead of his opponent at all times, ready to counter or escape. You may be wondering, well, how does he do it?
Las traes demasiado grandes.
Other than massive cojones, what Canelo's got is a yogic understanding of how all the different fighting motions can be combined into ever more creative permutations and combinations. Many other legends carry this same yogic flow into their practice. I think about Muhammad Ali, James Toney, Pernell Whitaker, Willie Pep, Nicolino Loche, Floyd, Lomachenko, Pacquiao. So in this video, we're going to talk about Rearslip versus a same-handed opponent and a Rearslip versus an opposite-handed opponent, Leadslip versus same-handed, Leadslip versus opposite-handed, Leadweave versus same-handed opponent and Leadweave versus opposite-handed opponent, Rearweave versus same-handed, and then finally Rearweave versus opposite-handed opponents. The main idea behind all of this is that Leadweaves, Rearweaves, slipping is offense and defense at the same time. When your head stays in the same slot, you're an easy target. So you can weave to change head slots. You can also slip to change head slots. And there's a whole bunch of other motions too that we're going to go into more detail in another video. Chapter 1, Rearslip versus same-handed opponent. A Rearslip is great because it moves your head away from the opposing lead and rear hands. It sets you up to counter and escape. It can be combined with all other movements to defend and attack at the same time, like pulls, parries, counters, and pivots. You gotta twist at the hips and sit down or squat into the slip. Head over your rear knee, stay balanced, and coil the potential energy from the twist in your legs and core. Rearslip 2 is a great jab counter. Following up with a Rearslip 6 is also a great counter to a jab. You can either throw the 6 simultaneously with the slip, which is more difficult, or throw the slip first and then fire the 6. Whichever way you do it, your head is outside of your opponent's lead and rear hands while you're coming back with a counter. Rearslip 3 or anything else from the lead hand is also an option. You can combine it with pivots to set up a counter and get a good angle. You can also cross body. It's a little bit more dangerous to step across your body, but it's another option that you can combine with a rear slip. You can rear slip while you punch, which is a great option to attack and defend at the same time. You can land a jab to the head this way, right? The head changes head slots. You can also land a jab to the body. Bending at the waist is not the same thing as slipping, though it's defensively functions in a somewhat similar way. I'll go into more detail about the difference in another video, but here are some examples for now. Chapter 2, Rearslip versus opposite-handed opponent. You want to rearslip the same way, right? Twisting, coiling that potential energy. And against an opposite-handed opponent, a rear slip is a great option to avoid their rear hand. Right? It's taking you away or outside of both of their hands, away from danger. You're moving away from the rear and the lead, and setting up your counter if you pivot or turn effectively too. Rearslip 6 is a great option for this. Basically, if you rear slip against an opposite-handed opponent, against their rear hand, a rear slip really sets up your rear hand to counter. Watch Lomachenko change head slots and then finally rear slip and come back with a counter. Pivoting off of the slip is a really great option because it brings your line of attack into an advantageous position. In this example, Loma rear slips outside the 2, then lead slips outside the jab. Moving outside both of these punches ensured that he mitigated and minimized the danger of a potential follow-up. Rear slips flow well with lead weaves. There's a natural yogic quality in which one motion preempts and prepares the next, like chaturanga to upward facing dog, like the hip twist of a lead hook loads the reverse hip twist of a rear uppercut. Chapter 3, Lead Slip versus Same-Handed Opponent. Like a rear slip, for a lead slip you gotta twist at the hips and sit down or squat into the slip, head over your knee, stay balanced, and coil the potential energy from the twist in your legs and core. There's risks and benefits to lead slipping a jab against a same-handed opponent. It's risky because your head moves inside or closer to the opposing free and strong hand. But the payoff is that your lead hand is well positioned for a quick, snappy counter. You gotta be mindful of not getting caught with a 2 when lead slipping inside the jab. Adding a rear slip or rear weave is one way you can also mitigate the danger of lead slipping inside of a jab. Counter, the hip twist is key. A lead slip naturally prepares a 3 or a 5. I think lead slip 5 is one of the prettiest attacks in boxing. A lead slip puts the head in a safe slot while prepping the 5. You can lead slip an opposing 2. Watch Tank Davis as he punishes Santa Cruz's lack of punch variety. Lead slip is a great option after you throw a 2. If you don't move or continue attacking after you throw a 2, you're going to get hit by a catch and shoot counter lead. Your rear hand is out of position, so you're vulnerable on that side. If you practice and drill following up your 2 with movement like a lead slip or rear weave, you don't need to see a counter coming to avoid it anyway. Canelo catches Floyd with a nice counter 3 here. Floyd fires at 1-2 but doesn't move after, and Canelo catches him. Next time Floyd fires his rear hand, he lead slips, having learned his lesson. Lead slipping the opposing 2 is one option you got, but like everything, it has risks and benefits. You can definitely lead slip the opposing 2 successfully, but you're moving towards your opponent's power hand, so there's no room for error. I prefer to lead weave under the 2 instead of lead slipping it like this. See Chapter 5 for why the lead weave is safer than a lead slip against an opposing 2. You can also lead slip as you punch. Lead slipping as you punch removes your head from the slot while also bringing your rear hand closer to the target. It goes great with a jab. You can see Floyd land this 2 Even though Canelo was firing a jab, Floyd doesn't get caught with it because he lead slips as he punches. Chapter 4. Lead slip versus opposite-handed opponent. Lead slipping might be safer against opposite-handed opponents than same-handed, because it takes you outside your opponent's line of attack. You can go inside the jab and set yourself up for a counter, but you're also more vulnerable to be countered when you go inside. This is why you see opposite-handed fights battle over the outside foot position so often. You can also counter off the lead slip. Lead slip 3 and lead slip 5 are both great options against opposite-handed opponents. You can lead slip as you punch also, to bring your rear hand closer to the target and to move your head to an advantageous slot. This goes really well with rear hand attacks. You can also pivot off of a lead slip to get to safety. The lead slip prepares and preempts the lead pivot. Lead slipping after your two helps you anticipate a counter. Chapter 5. Leadweave against a same-handed opponent. Weaving both vertically and horizontally takes your head out of the kill zone. You can also move while you weave. Tyson's peekaboo style used this tactic heavily. Leadweave 4 body is a great jab counter. Notice that Plant squats, not bends, with his eyes up and his chest up as he counters Canelo's jab with a Leadweave 4 body. Against same-handed opposing twos, I generally prefer the Leadweave over the lead slip. Lead slipping the two absolutely can work, but there's little room for error. Watch Tank try to roll Garcia's first two, then try to lead slip Garcia's 4. Tank gets caught by both, but he could have lead weaved under Garcia's 4. Here, Loma puts it all together, lead weaving under the 2 with his hands in high guard, rear slipping the 1, and then countering. Lead pivoting after a lead weave is a great way to get a great attack angle. Lead weaving the 2 can be dangerous though if you don't weave low enough, but it's a thing of beauty when it's done right. Quick side note, look at this ridiculous forearm parry from Canelo on the ropes. While it's not a great tactic for beginners, look how the tiniest forearm redirection of the oncoming 2 makes GGG's 2 fall an inch short. Okay, back to the lead weave. You can counter off the lead weave if your opponent overextends on a 2 or 4. Here, Garcia counters Tank's jab with a Rearslip 2, but Tank sees it coming and responds with a Leadweave 4-3, lead weaving under Garcia's 2. Lead weaving under the 2 is a great way to counter and stay safe. Chapter 6, Leadweave versus opposite-handed opponent. Lead weaving against opposite-handed opponents is a great way to escape to safety and get under their lead hand. You can pivot off of the lead weave, and it's moving to safety because lead weaving against an opposite-handed opponent is moving away from their power hand, denying them a target. In this example, Loma lead weaves under the oncoming 3. His opponent actually lead weaves under Loma's 3 as well, but Loma pivoted after his lead weave, keeping him safe and having a good line of attack, whereas his opponent doesn't end up pivoting after the lead weave and so is vulnerable to the counter. So you gotta pivot after the lead weave too. In this example, he's getting his ass kicked and he lead weaves to safety, but he fails to pivot back his line of attack to an advantageous angle after lead weaving. Right? Just lead weaves, no pivot, and gets caught hard. Chapter 7, Rearweave versus same-handed opponent. Rearweave versus a same-handed opponent is a great way to avoid their lead hand. Make sure that you step with your rear foot while you rearweave, and make sure you squat at the knees and don't bend at the waist so your eyes and chest can stay up and you can see what's going on. Rear weaves are great to defend against the lead hand, and they go really well with pivots and taking different angles too, so you can counter. Here, Canelo pivots right after he rear weaves, and so he's well positioned for it too. Rear weaves pair really well with lead slips because the two motions kind of flow together in a yogic way. So after you lead slip, a rear weave is a really great way to exit because that lead slip takes you closer to your opponent's strong hand. Here, Canelo lead slips and then rear weaves out to safety. Rear weaves are a great way to exit because you're moving towards your rear side, so you can use them to step away and disengage from your opponent while also removing your head from the slot. Even if you're getting cracked, a rear weave is a great way to get to safety. Even if you can't exactly see what's going on, preemptively rear weaves out and gets to safety. It's great to rear weave after throwing a 2 because if you don't, your opponent will likely catch and shoot on their lead side and hit you with a counter. Here, Floyd doesn't rear weave after throwing a 4, and so he gets hit with Canelo's catch and shoot 3. But if you rear weave after you throw a 2, you can preemptively avoid the oncoming 3 that is likely to follow. You gotta make sure you step while you rear weave because that step helps you change your line of attack and take you out of your opponent's line of attack. Even a small, subtle step before your rear weave will help you change that angle just enough so that you can counter effectively. Chapter 8, Rear Weave against opposite-handed opponents. It's great to rear weave against opposite-handed opponents, right? If you just wait and you just try to block, eventually those blocks will take their toll and break down your guard. Rear weaving against an opposite-handed opponent can help you get to a spot where you can counter effectively. Thanks so much for watching. It really helps if you like and subscribe to the channel. It helps me put out more videos. Make sure you let me know what you want to see next in the comments. Right now I'm working on videos on pivoting, also working on one on the Philly shell, but if there's something you want to see, make sure you let me know and I'll make a video on it.